Welcome to Building Generational Wealth. My name is Tui Fan. Here we teach, talk, discuss anything finance, from financial literacy, investing, side businesses, mindset, anything and everything in between that I wish I'd learned in my teens or even in my 20s. And I don't want you to wait until you're my age until realizing that, hey, I should have learned this 20, 30, 40 years ago. I know that they don't teach you this in school, and this is where I think they should teach you this in school. But that's okay. I'm bypassing the school system and bringing this to you on a free platform that's accessible to everybody worldwide. I want to start by telling you a story. Back when I was still living in Austin on the east side, if you know anything about Austin, the east side is a higher crime rate, and I wanted to teach everyone how to become a millionaire by the time they're 67 without working so hard. And I came into the school as a guest speaker, and I taught several classes for that day, and I started to ask the students this question. What if I can teach anyone in this class to be a millionaire without doing much? Would you believe it? And what do you think their response was? They weren't surprised, which was shocking, but here was their question and answer to me. What are you, a drug dealer? And I laughed and I said, what if I can teach you how to become a millionaire by the time you retire, and I can teach you how to do it legally without doing much? And that's the story I want to leave with you, is anyone can do it. I was confident to come to a high school to teach this, and I'm confident that I can teach anyone to do this with the right investment vehicles and structures in place. Okay, so before we become a millionaire, there are things we need to know, we need to learn, and we need to do. So what is the first step in becoming a millionaire if you are not one yet? It is learning about finance. So I've created this introductory to financial literacy for beginners. And this is going to be a very fast-paced video because we are just going to touch base on a lot of these, and then I will break down each part into more specific and more detailed videos in the future. So are you ready to get started? Financial literacy. I will talk about taxes and credit concepts that will only apply to the United States. There are people that are watching this from all over the world, and the tax concepts that I teach, the credit concepts, and some of the investment vehicles may not exist or is not the same in other countries. So that's a disclaimer to understand if you're watching this from outside the United States. These are all questions that I know you will be able to answer by the end of this video. If you know it now, that's perfect. If you don't, that's okay. This is why we're teaching this class. What is the difference between making money and building wealth? If I make a lot of money, does that mean I am wealthy? At what point am I wealthy? When should I prepare for retirement? Is there enough money or enough wealth to pass to my children? So as I said, those are the questions we'll be able to answer. We get back to that at the end of the video, and we'll answer that if you haven't already caught it. But I'm pretty sure if you follow it, you will already have the answer to that video. If you are watching it, you will already have the answer to those questions. What is financial literacy? A lot of this is common to a lot of financial literacy classes or teachings, but I've added some of my own, so pay attention to that, as this does not exactly match what everyone else may be talking about. The ability to understand finances, including earning, budgeting, saving, investing, borrowing, protecting, planning for retirement, mindset, that's huge. A lot of people don't include that in financial literacy, but mindset. And then building wealth, building and passing on generational wealth. That part is also not included in every talk about financial literacy. The goal of this class is to help students make informed decisions to secure their future and the future of their descendants. Okay, so you can see that my financial literacy doesn't just end when we pass away. It begins with us, but it continues to be passed forward and taught down the line. So when we talk about earning, are all earnings the same? Does everyone in the United States who make $100,000 get to keep the same amount? And I'm talking after taxes. I'm not talking about your spending. Of course, everyone has a different spending habit. The answer is no. Not everybody in the United States who makes $100,000 a year get to keep the same amount after taxes. Why? Is because some of us know the law or have a good accountant that can teach us or walk us through some of the tax loopholes and some of the investment strategies that can save us a lot of money on what we make. Is there anything I can do to keep more of my money? Yes. How, you may ask? Well, let me walk through some of them. This you may or may not know. There are a few states in the United States where you don't pay state income tax. I'm not talking about the federal income tax. Everybody pays that. But I'm talking about state income tax on top of federal income tax. So I live in Texas and I don't have a state income tax. If you don't live in one of these states, you are paying income tax. And then in New Hampshire and Washington, it's a little bit different because there are taxes on investments as well. So if you are not living in one of these states, you may be paying 10 or 10+% on top of your federal income tax. And that's a lot. So if you're making $100,000 and you're paying 10% just because you don't live in one of these states, then you only take home $90,000. But depending on your federal income tax, you can be taking home a lot less because everybody, as I said, has a different tax rate based on their investments and their business and their investment strategies. So these are decisions you have to make. And I'm not talking about emotions. I mean, if you are living with a lot of family in different neighborhoods that are close to you, you may not want to leave your state. You like where you live, you like the entertainment district, you like the school. There are many reasons why people choose to live where they are. And this is not emotional when I'm teaching this. So you have to also consider your emotions and your wants and needs when you talk about finances. And maybe there's a lifestyle change that you need to make. Who knows? But the more information you have, the better your decisions are, and the more informed you are, the better you make your decisions. So besides from the states, this is where it gets really fun. You can do business and you can invest, and depending on how you invest and how you do business, there are tax-deferred ways to do it, and there are tax-free ways to do it. And don't worry, I'm going to talk really quick about it, but know that in the future videos, I will break down each part and talk more about the details and what each of these are. So if you're working, then most of you would know 401k. If you're in the military, it's different. If you're working for the government, it's different. If you're not working for a company, you can also do your own investments, and those are pretty easy. I will talk about those in future videos. Now, when you're doing business and investing in real estate and talking about trust funds, there are more laws regarding that will give you extra tax benefits. If you're just investing in the stock market or real estate without any of the vehicles given above, then know the difference between short-term and long-term capital gains, and those are different tax rates. So I'm going very quick through this, but this is a whole field in its own. Next is budgeting. It's not just spending, it's budgeting. Mastering your budget is the foundation to building wealth and retirement, not how much you earn. So we're going to take a break here, and I'm going to give you a little story. We used to work with a coworker when I was an engineer, and this person would made around $50,000 roughly, and they said, if I made $100,000, I would be so well off. Well, guess what happened? They quit their job, went back to get a business degree. They came out making close to or about $100,000, and then a few years later called me and said they were financially in trouble, about to go bankrupt, and they needed my help. So that's one story. Now, in my circle, I know people that are millionaires that almost went bankrupt because they know how to make money, but they don't know about financial literacy. So they don't have their future taken care of. So if you're making money and continuously making a lot of money, that's great, but what happens when you stop making money? That's where people can't tell the difference between making money and building wealth. Do you have a budget? Do you know how much your home mortgage, bills, insurance, property taxes are, your car costs, meals, etc.? What percentages are those of your take-home? Now, if you don't know that, this is probably the main reason why you're not even thinking about building your wealth. You are not conscious of how much you're spending. You are not planning how much you're spending. Now, you have to plan how much you spend, not just spend. Do you know your before and after tax income? What do you take home after taxes? Is it possible for an average family to have more wealth and a better retirement than someone earning $1 million a year? Yes, that is possible. Now, there are doctors and lawyers and high-income individuals that have a low net worth. Low net worth compared to an average family making $50,000 to $100,000 a year versus a doctor or lawyer making $500,000 to $1 million a year that still lives paycheck to paycheck. If they lose their job, they cannot survive. That is reality. And I want people to fully understand that if you don't have financial understanding and you know how to make a lot of money, that does not protect you from being poor or being in poverty or living paycheck to paycheck. Do you know the same budgeting skill is used at home and in your business? I know quite a few mom and pop businesses that don't even know how much they make. They rely on their accountant to give them a tax return at the end of the year, and they say that's how much they make. That is not true. Now, there are a lot of fake, and I say fake in parentheses, numbers, because you can deduct a lot of your business expenses that people may not think are business expenses. Your car, your phone, your travel, your meals, lots of things. But a good accountant would save you more money than what you're paying them. Do you know some lottery winners or people with huge jumps in income still live paycheck to paycheck after their income increase? Well, that's because they don't understand financial literacy. They don't have a budget plan. So they're spending because they think they have money. But what they don't realize is the maintenance behind it. So that's why many people who go from $50,000 to $100,000 or $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month, or even lottery winners, don't know how to stay away from a paycheck to paycheck living. What do most people do when they have an income increase? They're going to spend it on the highest expense that they can, and that's usually a house and a car. Those two items are usually your highest monthly expenses. So when their income increases, immediately that's what people do. They go and buy a bigger house, more expensive car, and then they go back to living paycheck to paycheck. And I'll show you those examples and how to stay away from that and how to go beyond that so you can build your wealth. Okay, so this is where we should be focusing. Our first foundational skill for building wealth. Now, I've talked to a few people, and this is generally what I see. Yours may be different, but in general, a lot of people don't have a savings and investment slot here. So a budget is a spending plan on what we value. Notice I use the word value. I'm not talking about your expenses. What do you value? A lot of people value a nice house. They want a nice car. They want to drive comfortably. And that comes with costs, and it usually adds up in terms of utilities and food and personal care. So all those will add up. And then they don't have anything left for this. And that's where most people make their mistake. Now what I teach you, your target is to change your numbers so that you will have something like this. 20% savings and investment and 10% charity and donations. And this is not overnight. You're not going to get there overnight. It's going to take a mindset change and potentially a standard of living change. But if you're thinking about your future and your descendants, this is the way it has to be. So this is what a lot of people spend their money on. The bulk of their money is spent on their living expenses. This includes your principal and interest on your mortgage, your taxes, and your insurance. And some people have HOA fees or condo fees, condo associations, and then some people rent. So whatever it is, anything that's related to the cost of your living goes here. That includes taxes, insurance, and mortgage as well. Because a renter doesn't have any of that. But we have to calculate all that to be apples to apples comparison. The next biggest budget item is usually the car. And that includes people buying brand new cars with a loan. The rest is pretty simple. Your utilities, which is what it costs to run your house or your home. Food, whether you cook or you eat out, add everything here. We don't need to make it complicated. If you want to, you can divide up into smaller categories, but I'm trying to focus on the big picture. Personal care, that's your haircut, your toiletries, anything you need to live in your home. Child care, if you have children, not just babies. Babies, you know, cost a lot more. Children that are in school, you need to buy them clothes. You need to buy school supplies, transportation. So lots of different things that will go here as long as it pertains to your children. Healthcare, this is a big range of percentage difference because some people have healthcare through their company, which is cheaper. Some people work their own boss, so they have higher expenses. Some people have lower income, so they have free healthcare. Whatever it is, this is typically what I see when I talk to quite a few of these people to create this budget. Entertainment, this includes your internet, your movies going out, your cell phone or cell phones. Everything that has to do with entertainment goes here. And then there's usually nothing left for savings and investments. And of course, if you don't have anything there, then most likely you're not donating to your favorite charities or your causes that you care for. Now let me show you how sad this looks here. According to Forbes advisors, more than 1/4 of Americans more than one-fourth, have less than $1,000 in their savings account. More than 50% of Americans can't even come up with $5,000 to $10,000 in case of emergencies. Now that's terrible, because not only are you living paycheck to paycheck, a month that the car breaks down or anything happens or a family member needs help, you are not able to react because you don't have a way to pay for it. And then you go further and further into debt. So you can look up these stats. This is Forbes Advisor, or you can Google it and you'll see what I'm talking about. But that's where the average American stays, is they cannot go above $5,000 to $10,000. So this is why this is in red. And that's to show that there's an urgency there and there needs to be a change if you don't already have this budgeted into your monthly budget. This is yellow. This is nice to have, which you should have once you're doing better and you're well off. But if you don't make it a goal, this will never happen. Let's go through what these numbers look like. All right, I'm choosing a random number. If you take home $5,000, this may and may not be your situation, but we have to use something to run through an example. If you take home $5,000 a month, and this number may even be low, people spend 48% on housing. They spend 15% on transportation, 15% on food. And as you can see, these numbers are not very high. So you say, that's impossible. I can't even live off of what I'm doing. How can I even increase this? That's okay. I'll show you how to do that. Now the target should be this. Well, should, meaning you should plan to have a savings and investment number. And if you have this, great. If not, you can put it here, but we're going to talk about everything from your earnings. And if you're young, this would be no problem. If you're older, then we can talk about side businesses to help you catch up. So don't worry about it. Right now, we're just learning the basics, and then we'll talk about basics of how to get you to millionaire status by the time you retire. Are we good? So we want to get into an area where there is something here for retirement, whether it's 10% or even 5%, where it's $250 a month. We need to start somewhere. But eventually, I hope that when you make more money, this number or this value in your chart gets bigger and not the same or smaller, because that will advance you very far as we do the compounded interest exercise. You'll see the more you invest now, the sooner you can retire and the more money you have. And we'll go through that. Now, if you're making $5,000 a year, and if you were to retire tomorrow, you need about $30,000 in reserve. Or even if you're not retiring, I always suggest you have 6 months in reserve. And it may seem ridiculous now, but before I am where I am now, before when I didn't have any money, I still had this goal right after college, was to save up at least 6 months to retire. 6 months of emergency reserves, just in case something happens. And this seems like a lot, but it's doable, and I can show you how to do that. And to retire, you need about $1.2 million. I'll go through why that is. If you have a bank CD or you put this money in a bank, in today's market, they will pay you 5% of your money in the bank for free. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is put money in the bank, and you have $5,000 a month to live off of. And we'll go through those numbers. Right now, I'm just introducing this so you can understand what this looks like. Now, planning for retirement. I'm going to use a very generic example, and you don't have to be 20. Like I said, even if you're 30, 40, 50, we can do some catch up, but it'll be a little bit more work, or a lot more work than if you were in your 20. But I'm hoping to reach out to a younger audience, preferably in their teens or in their 20s. But if you're catching my videos now, that's okay. We have a way to catch up with other investment vehicles and side businesses that you can do to get a higher income so that you can start investing now. So we will assume that you start preparing for retirement at 20 and you want to retire at 60. And yes, I know the retirement age is 67 right now, but just for simple math, where I'm going to use 40 years that you start planning for retirement, and then you live another 40 years. So the numbers are not going to match the current law, but for simple math, this is what we're going to do. You start planning at 20, you retire at 60, and you live to 100. What does that look like? If you're making $50,000 a year, that gives you 40 years to save up. You will need $2 million to live for 40 years. What that means is, on top of spending $50,000 a year, you also need to save $50,000 more to have $2 million to retire from 60 to 100. So if you save $50,000 a year for 40 years, you will end up with $2 million. All right, so let's do the basic math. You make $50,000 a year times 40 years. There you go. That's $2 million. So that's what you have to save, $2 million in 40 years. Why $2 million? Because every year you're going to spend $50,000. So divided by 40, 2 million divided by 40 years, you will spend $50,000 a year. Does that make sense? So what does that mean? That means you have to bring home $100,000 a year. You're going to spend $50,000, and then you're going to put $50,000 away. And that's how you're able to retire at 60 and not work anymore. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds terrible. If I'm currently bringing home $100,000 a year, I have to put 50% away and live off of 50%, so that by the time I'm 60, I have $2 million that I can live to 100. That's terrible. What I'm teaching you is this. Same scenario. You start at 20, you retire at 60, and you live to 100. Or you can live up to 110. Doesn't matter. With this formula, it's different. Here, at 100 years old, you have nothing left. And there's nothing to leave to your children or your children's children. Here's what I'm proposing. At 20, you start saving and investing. 60, you retire. 100 is when you pass away. And you're the type that is bringing home $50,000 and spending $50,000 a year. I'm proposing that from 20 to 60, instead of saving $2 million, we're only saving investing $150,000. That means $3,600 a year, or $300 a month, versus $50,000 a year, or over $4,000 a month that we have to save, versus $300 a month that we have to save and invest. So look at this. This is just savings alone. If you're just saving alone, these numbers are terrible. Now, if you're saving and investing wisely and conservatively, then you only need to invest $300 a month to get to $1 million. So with this example, you can see you don't have to have a lot of money, and you don't have to invest a lot of money per year, and you end up with $1 million with this strategy by the time you pass away, versus $0 to pass on to your children or your descendants when you pass away. So how does this work? Well, let's see. Now this is small, so let me see if I can make it a little bigger. So here's an example I just did. At 20 years old. At 20 years old, we put away $300 a month, which is $3,600 a year. And let's ignore this for now. I'll talk about this later. This is just an investment vehicle that returns 8%, which is very doable. You don't have to do anything. This is basically the stock market. I'm doing 10% in the stock market without day trading or anything. I'm just diversified, and I'm at 10% on average. There are years that you lose money, there are years you make money, but on average, I'm at 10, but you can easily do 8%. So here it is. 20 years old, you've invested $3,600, and let's say the first year you didn't make any money. That's okay. At 30 years old, you invested $39,000, and you have $60,000. All right, not too bad, not too shabby. At 40 years old, you've invested $75,000, and you've made, or your account now has $181,000 in there. Wait a minute, what's happening here? These numbers don't look right. Let's see, 50. 50, you've invested $111,000, and you have $444,000 in your account. Did you ever imagine that you would have close to $500,000 by the time you're 50, and you don't even have to do anything? All right, let's look at 60. You've invested less than $150,000 your whole entire lifetime for 40 years, and you have over $1 million in your account. This is how you become a millionaire. This is called compounded interest. We're going to teach you the rule of 72. We're going to talk about stocks and diversifying in stocks. This is just one investment vehicle. Don't think that this is the only thing I'm talking about. In this class and future classes, we'll be talking about side businesses, investments, real estate, mutual funds, stocks, tax accounts, so many, many things. This is just the tip of the iceberg, just to get you to be aware of what's in your world. This is all free to you. This system is all around you. You just need to tap into it. Okay? So what does this mean? This is somebody working for you for free. This is time working for you for free. This is money working for you for free. That's why you see, if you started with $10,000, if you had that luxury and you continue to invest $300, look at what happens when you're 60. See, the number keeps going up. $10,000 now just became $200,000, because remember, you were only at $1 million before. But if you started with a bigger number, then your number is going to be bigger. So $10,000 in 40 years becomes $200,000, and you didn't do anything. This is somebody working for you, this is time working for you, and this is money working for you. This is compounded interest. the interest that you made or the money that you made from your investment will go back into your investment and make more money for you. And you can see how this multiplies up. But I'm making this where anybody can start, not just somebody who already has money. I'm teaching from the ground up. If you have more money, that's perfect. Let's say you already have $100,000 in your 401k, or you've already saved up and now you're looking to invest. So now at 60, you're at $3 million. You can see how fast money becomes when you start investing earlier, sooner, and with a higher amount. Okay, let's say you don't have $100,000. Let's say you're an engineer and your wife is an engineer, which is what we were. Myself and my wife, we graduated and became engineers. And we're both making roughly a little bit over $100,000 together. And we were only using half of our paycheck. So we could have easily, each of us, invest $1,000 into our own retirement account, which is $12,000 a year. By the time we're 60, you can see we have $3.3 million. And we didn't do anything. We don't day trade. We just leave the money there in our retirement account and it grows tax-free. But again, I'm trying to make this where it's for everybody when you're in your 20s, not when you're already making a lot of money. That's my whole point, is you don't need to make a lot of money to build wealth. And you don't need to make a children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and so on. Everybody can start from zero and build their way up. Of course, if you have more money, like I showed you, then you can do it faster. But if you don't, you can still start now. So I hope that makes sense. If you're not saving, then start saving. And if you're saving, then start investing. Because saving alone is a terrible way to retire. This is a much, much more doable number. This is overkill. This you can do. All right, so with those examples, this chart or this slide should make a lot more sense. Saving and investing. Notice I don't ever put saving by itself. I always put saving and investing. Saving alone does not build wealth. You need a clear retirement plan with goals. You need a clear budget to have a clear retirement plan. So let's go back. Let's see here. Because I know my budget and because I know how much money I need when I retire, then I can come up with a retirement plan. Does that make sense? You need a clear retirement plan with goals. And you need a clear budget to have a clear retirement plan. If you don't even know your budget, you can't come up with a retirement plan. The more time you have, the more free money you make. So I hope that was evident in the spreadsheet that I showed you. Because we were investing over 40 years, we started with very little and ended up with a lot. You are wealthy when your income surpasses your spending. This is not everybody's definition, but if you're in my class, my rule, this is my definition for wealthy. It's not that somebody is making passive income at $5,000 a month that they're wealthy. If that's your standard of living, then you're wealthy. If you are living off of $20,000 a month, then you need passive income to surpass $20,000 a month to be wealthy. So my definition of wealth, again, is not how much you make, but how much you spend, and does your passive income or your investments or your business support that without you working. If you're still in your business, then you're not wealthy. If you're into your business because it's your hobby, because you enjoy it, not because you need to work to make that money, then you're wealthy. Does that make sense? So wealthy is I can work, I don't have to work, and I can still live off of my generated income without working, then I'm wealthy. So that's my definition. So in this class, we're going to try to get everybody to be wealthy, where your income without working, not working, without working, surpasses your spending. And some of the answers, some of the questions you may ask, now that you're aware of this, should I rent or buy? This is not a yes or no question. This depends on each person's situation, and it depends on where you live. Sometimes it's better to buy, and sometimes it's better to rent. We'll have teaching videos in the future that talk about each one of these topics. Should I pay off my house? Again, these are not yes or no questions. These are situational questions. What should I invest in? Again, this is not a straight answer. These are situational, depending on your risk adversity. If you're a beginner, if you don't do anything else, then put money in the bank and put it in a money market savings account or a bank CD. Okay? Don't just have cash lying around, because you will lose money to inflation. All right, be aware of that. Now, as we keep teaching more and more, these will be higher and higher risk, but to me, it's not high risk because I know what I'm doing, and if you follow what I'm teaching, you will keep yourself very safe. There are tax-free accounts, tax-deferred accounts. We went through this already, but the CD is just to get your feet wet and to understand how to budget and how to save. And then that's building up your cash reserve for emergencies. But here's where it gets more fun and more interesting, and it has a higher return. So these we talked about different businesses and real estate investing and side businesses. We'll talk about investing in different vehicles. Now, once you have wealth, it's natural that you want to protect it, because not only for yourself, when you pass away, you want to leave something to your descendants. And how do you protect it? Number one rule, have a healthy reserve. If something happens, do you lose everything? Like our coworkers in the past that went from $50,000 to $100,000, or doctors and lawyers making $500,000, $500,000 a year, and don't have a healthy reserve. So if they start to have health issues, they lose their job, then they're in trouble. Okay, so 6 months, diversify your investments. We're going to talk about a lot of investment strategies, and even in each one of those, how to diversify. Split your assets into separate legal entities. If you have properties, split them up into different LLCs or LPs or corporations. If you have different type of investments, put in different places. Again, and your assets that are tax protected, your retirement plans, they're untouchable. Those accounts are untouchable. All right, so you don't have to worry about that. If your investments are outside, then yes, you need to worry about some of this. So let me put down there, healthy reserve, tax-free retirement accounts. Let's say that. Retirement accounts that are set up by law are untouchable. What do I mean by that? Even bankruptcies can't touch your retirement. When somebody sues you and you lose, they can't touch your retirement accounts. That's how strong they are. All right? So if they're outside of your retirement accounts, split your assets into multiple entities. General liability insurance. This is when you're doing big business, or you have a lot of properties, or you have a lot of investments. A lawsuit happens. You want to protect yourself from lawsuits. Property insurance. Everyone needs this because you don't know when the next catastrophe is going to happen. That's okay. If it doesn't, that's fine. But budget in for property insurance and general liability insurance. Financial products and investments to protect you when you lose your job, get injured, disabled. Those are all very good ways to protect yourself. And we'll talk about these in more details. Right now, I'm just introducing you to possibilities that you weren't even aware of. And it took me a very long time to gather all this information and be part of many high net worth groups where some of them we have to pay $10, $20, $50,000 to join to, and I'm giving you all this information for free. And you can't build wealth rapidly without understanding about borrowing and partnering. You got to understand about unlimited money. If your mindset is there's a lack of money, that's the wrong way to think. You have to think not having enough money should never stop you from investing and or doing business. There's always a way that you can do it. You can borrow money if you borrow wisely. You can partner up. You can borrow from your family. There's many ways. So when you're borrowing money, you need to understand asset versus liability. So my general rule of thumb is anything that's an asset, I will borrow money. Anything that is a liability, I will not borrow money. So for most people, I'm not talking about collectibles, a car is a liability. A car is not an asset. It loses value. Anything you put money in, if you can help it, don't get a loan. Don't borrow money against it because it loses value. For me, 30 years that I've been driving, probably over 30 years I'm assuming. Yes, over 30 years that I've been driving, the bulk of my cars have always been around $5,000 to $10,000. In the beginning, they were around $5,000, and I always bought a car when I had money. I never bought a car on borrowing money from the bank, and that may or may not be good for your credit score. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. An asset gains value. So if you talk about your home, it may or may not be an asset because some homes actually lose value and some homes don't gain value that beat inflation. So if you buy a house, for example, and you need to sell it tomorrow, you're going to lose roughly 8 to 10%. You're going to have to hire a real estate agent, that's 6%. And then you're going to have to pay title company, so that's another 2%. And then if they negotiate, then you lost another 2%. So if you have a house that's worth $100,000 and you go and sell it tomorrow, you're probably going to end up getting back $90,000 because of the real estate commission, because of the title insurance, because people might negotiate the price, the listing price. So there you go. That's not an asset, but we'll talk about that in more details. So learn about your FICO score. This is very important to U.S. citizens or U.S. residents. Understand what it's comprised of. New credit, length of credit. So if you have a credit card you're not using, what does this mean? Don't cancel it. Leave it, because the length of credit matters. Credit mix. So credit card, house, car loans. These are all different mix of credits. Payment history. Always pay on time. Don't pay late. Amounts owed. If you have $10,000 of line of credit on your credit card, and you're using $10,000, that's pretty bad. If you're paying it off every month, that's pretty good. So all of these contribute to your credit score, which gives you the borrowing capacity or borrowing power that you need to invest and do your business. All right, so we're at the end of the class, and here's my last piece of advice, and it's about mindset. Everything I teach you is good, but if it doesn't push you to action, you really have to think, what is your mindset? Do you have a lack mindset or an abundance mindset? Are time, money, and people expenses or costs in your life? Do you find yourself saying, oh, it cost me an hour to do this. Oh, it cost me money to put money in the bank. I have to pay monthly fees, or I have to pay this and that, or I have to pay because something is late. Do you consider people as an expense in your life? Like your kids, like your employees, like your coworkers, that cost you time, that cost you money? Or are they your friends? Does time, money, and people make you money, make you free money, make you effortless money? That's how you know if you have a lack or abundance mindset. Do you have a victim or a limitless mindset? Are you a victim of being born poor, not smart enough, not enough money to invest or start your own business, the government, your ethnicity? Or are you a creator of your destiny? Regardless of your situation, you are not the victim of your situation. You are not a victim of being born to a poor family. You are not a victim because you don't have enough money to do your first investment or start your first business. I'll tell you a story. My mom and dad, when we first came to America, were minimum wage, and they had more than one job. Why? Because they had a clear goal to take care of us, the kids, and they had a clear goal to take care of themselves when they retire. So they got more than one job. I'm going to teach you how to do better than that. Not get a second job, but still make money. So being on welfare and food stamps, you know what happens when you start saving money, right? You lose the welfare and food stamps. So you have to make a choice. That is a choice. Are you a victim of the government, or are you going to be the creator of your own destiny? So you choose to get out of poverty or not. So when you save up a few $1,000s, guess what? You lose welfare and food stamps and the WIC program that you're on. But you have to make that decision so that you have enough money to start investing and or do your own business. And that's how you get ahead. Or you save up enough money to go to school and get a job. Any way that you make money that's legal, it's all good. So that's what I want to leave with you. After this class, if you don't have a budget, are you going to start your budget? And if you have a budget and you haven't started investing yet, are you going to start investing? And if you're already doing both of those, do you have a retirement plan? Do you know how much money you need? Remember these questions at the beginning of the class? By now, we should all be able to answer these questions. What's the difference between making money and building wealth? Well, like I said, a doctor making $500,000 a year can still live paycheck to paycheck, while someone living minimum wage can still build wealth and retire at 67 or even earlier and not worry about living paycheck to paycheck. If I make a lot of money, does that mean I am wealthy? Obviously, the answer is no. If you're making $500,000 to $1 million and you're still living paycheck to paycheck, you are not wealthy. If you're making minimum wage or $10 an hour, $20 an hour, and you have 6 months worth of reserves, and you have money that just in case you don't work anymore and you can survive, you're wealthy. At what point am I wealthy? There you go. When your income that you don't have to work, passive income, surpasses your spending. When should I prepare for retirement? If you remember my example, time is your friend, but you need to get started now. The answer is now. You always plan for retirement now when you start making money. Put in a budget, put in a reserve, put in an investment percentage. Is there enough wealth to pass to my children? If you followed all my rules and what we've taught you, then yes, by the time you retire, everything is passive. You don't need to work. All of that goes to your descendants. So I hope that by following these classes and these talks and discussions, you're going to make better decisions on your finances and secure a better future for yourself and your children. Once again, my name is Thuy Phan. I hope that you enjoyed our first introductory class to building generational wealth. This is financial literacy for beginners, or financial literacy 101. And continue to follow us. If you want to get up-to-date classes whenever it hits YouTube, then go ahead and subscribe. And there's a notification bell. If you hit that and turn it on, then you will always get my latest classes. We talk and discuss and teach anything finance. I'll see you in the next class.